CBSE Board, Class 11, History, Chapter 3, Part 16, Audio by Renee Matthew. We saw about the introduction of science and philosophy and the contribution of the Arabs, especially about Ptolemy's Almagest, where the Arabic definite article al was introduced and the way they translated the works and all that we saw. Now, among the Muslim writers, people who were regarded as the men of wisdom, especially in the Italian world, there was a person who was known as the men of wisdom, especially in the Italian world, and his name was Ibn Sina. Okay, Ibn Sina, Avicenna in Italian, in Latin, sorry. Now, who was this Ibn Sina? He was an Arab physician and philosopher, especially residing in the place of Bukhara in Central Asia and at Al-Razi, Razes. He was the author of a work known as Medical Encyclopedia. He was a physician and philosopher, Ibn Sina, and also author of Medical Encyclopedia. Another person was there, Ibn Rushd. Don't get confused between these two people, Ibn Sina and Ibn Rushd. His main contribution was in the branch of philosophy, and he tried to solve the tension between philosophical knowledge, which is philosophy, and religious beliefs. There was always a tension or an unparalleled side between the study of religion and philosophy. So that was tried to be resolved, especially by Ibn Rushd. The other person was prosperous and learned in medicine. And he was a physician and philosopher also, but more in medicine. And this particular method was adopted by the Christian thinkers, that is the method of Ibn Rushd. So humanists tried to reach the people and reform the people in many different ways, not in just one way. It was done through many ways, especially through the curriculum which was practiced in the universities. It continued to be dominated by law, medicine, and theology. And they started introducing a subject known as humanist subjects. It began to be introduced in schools, not only in Italy but also in European countries as well. They started introducing it. So the curriculum itself was revised, it was edited, and it had all these subjects: law, medicine, theology, and even the humanist subjects were there. Not just in Italy but also in European countries. So there was a revision of the curriculum. Now this is the picture of Ibn Rushd, okay, who was the philosopher who tried to resolve tension between the two branches of religion and philosophy. And at this time, you shouldn't get mistaken, the schools were only for boys and not for girls, where all these subjects were actually taught. Okay. Now we need to look into artists and realism. The realism and the artist's portrayal of it. So formal education was not only the source of educating the people. That was not the only way the humanists approached people. There were other ways in which people started approaching, not just formal education. And can you see folded hands there? Okay, so art, architecture, and books were wonderfully effective in transmitting humanist ideas to show that human beings are supposed to be humane in nature, and that is the first pivotal want from a human being. That is a basic necessity where you have to be a human being. Apart from all the knowledge and apart from all the advancement that you have to be a human being. So art was already embedded in nature. It was already a part of nature. And a person who can extract art from nature was actually, it was a kind of very good way of. So art is already embedded in nature, and a person who can extract this art will be able to understand the meaning of life itself. The way you demonstrate much of your work by geometry, the means that is used to extract things from nature would be through geometry, the shapes and size and all these things. The more closely your work abides by life, the more you draw closer to nature and to life in its form, the better it will appear. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of artificiality in it. Nobody will be able to make a beautiful figure out of his own imagination unless and until he copies life. Life is what you have to copy from, and that is how the imagination is enhanced. And these are the words of Albrecht Dürer. And that is the picture. There's a picture given there by Dürer, praying hands. It gives us a sense of Italian culture, especially in the 16th century, when people were really religious but also had a sense of confidence in man's ability. And it was to achieve near perfection that we took a lot of things from nature, and you reach perfection when you do things from nature. And that is how mysteries of the world and universe is perfected. So praying hands brush drawing by Dürer, 1508. This is not a brush drawing, but it is a kind of representation of the original drawing which I took from the internet, but it is based on the brush painting by Dürer. Okay, the praying hands. It is a very important depiction. Artists always started studying. They studied and they got inspired by the works of art. The remains of Roman culture were sought with much excitement as ancient texts. So after the fall of Rome, lot of fragments of art were discovered in the ruins of ancient Rome. So much of art was discovered, and even in deserted cities. And that is how people started unfolding the Roman culture, the fragments and everything. It was just unfolded. They started studying from the Romans. The admiration for the figures which were perfectly sculpted, especially of men and women from Rome, the features, especially the face, nose, eyes, it had so much of life. So even now when you look at the sculptures in Rome, it has got a lot of proportion. The proportion with which they carved it out, it made Italian sculptures to continue that tradition. Italians also copied it. One such example is given, just a random example is given here, but you can get more better examples of sculptures in the internet also. Videos are also available. In 1416, Donatello had a new point to make, especially with lifelike statues, because always the artist wanted to make his statue look very lifelike. The eyes and the way it looks as if a real person is standing there, right? That is why I told you just now that people said you have to near life with perfection. And that was it. You have to be accurate. Artists were supposed to be accurate, which was helped by the work of scientists also. They worked in collaboration to study the bone structures. They had to do so much of work to study the bone structure. It is like making an original person, a human being, to know the bone structure. They went to the laboratories of medical schools and then only they worked on it, because it is not just the outward appearance. They should think that something is there inside. The skeletal structure is there. It's as if it is there, and then they have to start making, then they have to start working on it. Andreas Vesalius was a Belgian professor of medicine, especially at the University of Padua. He was the first to dissect the human body and understand it better, especially the bone structure and all that. Andreas Vesalius' picture is given here. He was the first person to dissect the human body and understand it better. Do you know who this person is on the screen? Well, it is Andreas Vesalius. Another picture I have given, another profile is given there. The same person is given here on the screen over here, but another better picture is given here. And I told you just now that he was the first person to dissect the human body, and it was the beginning of modern physiology. He was the first person to have the this thing of modern physiology. Leonardo da Vinci was very famous. Even now his paintings are living through. It is so immortal. The self-portrait by Da Vinci had amazing range of interest from botany and anatomy to mathematics and art. Botany, anatomy, mathematics and art. So much of variation. Okay, look at the branches that he consulted and he was profound in. He painted Mona Lisa, The Last Supper. He just wanted to fly. His dreams was to just fly. He spent so many years observing birds in flight and designed a flying machine. See, it's based on life. He wanted to be perfect, very near to life, almost life. Yes? He signed his name Leonardo da Vinci, disciple of experiment. He called himself as a disciple of experiment. So the painters during this time did not have any models. They did not know on what they were supposed to work. They just had to have something and work on it realistically. A knowledge of geometry helped them understand this perspective better, to change the quality of light and everything. And then they were able to acquire a three-dimensional quality picture based on that. So they had to study all these things. It is not just painting something from somewhere. So much of knowledge was necessary, right? Three-dimensional picture, geometry, realistic sculpturing, everything was there when you see each painter. Okay, so that is about this particular chapter, which was very interesting, and you need to go through the points again and again. Please make sure that you have a timeline in front of you after you finish each audio. This will help you to understand things better and also to learn these names. Please write and study the names. Okay.